Let's transition back to the Eastern Conference. Let's go to the 8 versus 5 matchup in the East. It's the 8th seed Miami Heat taking on the 5 seed New York Knicks. So much history between these two teams. First of all, who would have thought the Heat and the Knicks would be in the second round of the NBA playoffs? I had it wrong. I had the Bucks and the Cavs in the conference semifinals in the East, and obviously the Bucks were favored over the Heat, and the Bucks underachieved. So the Knicks, they pretty much dominated the Cavs in their 5-game series. I was surprised. I was shocked the way the Knicks were able to dominate the Cavs in their 5-game series win. I was completely shocked. So honestly, like, I'm so surprised that this is the matchup that we're talking about. Like, either the Heat or the Knicks are going to be in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, I can't wrap my mind around the idea of the Heat or the Knicks being in the conference finals. If you would have told me 2 weeks ago, prior to the playoffs, that the Knicks or the Heat would have an opportunity to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I would have said you're wrong and you don't know basketball. So that's the first thing I have to say about this matchup. Also, it's so much history between the Heat and the Knicks. The playoff battles between Pat Riley and Jeff Van Gundy, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston for the Knicks, Tim Hardaway for the Miami Heat. So much history between the Miami Heat and the New York Knicks in the playoffs. I'm here for it. I am here for this matchup. Game 1 will be Sunday afternoon on ABC at Madison Square Garden at the Mecca. Knicks fans are going to be going crazy Sunday afternoon because we know, y'all all know, Stephen A. included on ESPN. My man Stephen A. Much respect to Stephen A. I love the job that he does for ESPN. Someone who I have a lot of respect for in the media industry. Knicks fans, if they win a playoff game, they believe that they have won a playoff series. They believe that they have won a conference championship as a team. That's what Knicks fans believe. So we all know that the Knicks fans are excited for this matchup. Vegas has the Knicks favorite at minus 158. That's pretty significant. Vegas believes that the Knicks are the favorites in this series. Now, the Heat and the Knicks played 4 times this year. All 4 games were after the beginning of February. 3 of the 4 games were after the trading deadline. And the Knicks beat the Heat in 3 out of the 4 matchups this season. The Knicks averaged 112 points per game. The Heat averaged 111 points per game. The Knicks shot a better field goal percentage at 52%. The Heat shot 48%. The Heat shot better from 3-point range at 42%. The Knicks shot just 39%. So let's start off with the Miami Heat. Obviously, the Miami Heat, they are led by Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has been the best player in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Jimmy Butler in the first round for the Miami Heat against the Bucks, a team that has great defensive personnel. Jimmy Butler averaged 37 points per game on 60% shooting from the floor, 44% shooting from 3-point range. So that was one of the weaknesses in Jimmy Butler's game, was he's not a great 3-point shooter. That was something that coaches and opposing teams, they wanted Butler to shoot perimeter shots because he never really hit them at a high level. That has changed. In the first round against the Bucks, Jimmy Butler shot 44% from 3-point range. That's with the likes of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, 44% from three. He was sensational in that first round playoff series. Just to give you some context of what Jimmy Butler was able to do in games 4 and games 5 of the first round. This is the last 2 playoff occurrences where a player had 98 points or more over a 2-game span. Michael Jordan in the 1993 finals had 98 points or more in a 2-game span. Jimmy Butler had 98 points or more in a 2-game span in games 4 and games 5 against the Milwaukee Bucks. So Jimmy Butler has definitely elevated his game, and Jimmy Butler is the true definition of a playoff performer. There are some players who play average in the regular season and they elevate their games in the postseason. And there are some players who are the opposite. They play great in the regular season, but in the postseason, the lights, when they're at their brightest, they shrink. They don't play at the level that they played in the regular season, in the postseason. Jimmy Butler is that player who, when the lights are at his brightest, he plays his best. Last year, Jimmy Butler dragged the Miami Heat to a Game 7 in Miami against a Boston Celtics team that had more depth than the Miami Heat. They had more talent than the Miami Heat, and they had more star power with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown than the Miami Heat had. The Miami Heat only had Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy Butler was 1 3-point shot away from sending the Boston Celtics on summer vacation and sending the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals for the second time in the last 5 years, because they got to the finals in the bubble against the Lakers. So Jimmy Butler is a superstar. And when I think about superstars in the NBA, I think about players who have proven that they can be the number 1 option on a championship team. And the players that I'm about to name are all first ballot Hall of Famers to me. Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Giannis, and Kawhi Leonard. Now, I know Kawhi Leonard hasn't played in a very long time because of injuries, but Kawhi Leonard is proven. 2-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, one of the best two-way players that we have in NBA history. Kawhi Leonard is proven. I believe that Jimmy Butler deserves to be in that same conversation. We got to start talking about Jimmy Butler as far as him being a Hall of Famer, not just a great player in today's NBA, but a Hall of Famer from a legacy standpoint. Because I think we really didn't really pay attention as much back then because it was a bubble. But Jimmy Butler leading the Miami Heat to an NBA Finals appearance in the bubble was impressive. It was impressive. We didn't really pay attention to it that much because it was the bubble, but that was an amazing accomplishment for Jimmy Butler and that Miami Heat franchise. I thought the Boston Celtics were more talented than the Miami Heat that season. I thought the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis and Middleton were more talented than the Miami Heat that season. And Jimmy Butler willed the Miami Heat to the NBA Finals in the bubble. And he was en route to doing it last year. But luckily, that 3-point attempt by Butler in the conference finals went off the rim, and the Celtics went to the NBA Finals against the Warriors. But Jimmy Butler deserves to be in that NBA superstar conversation for sure. Now, when I look at the Miami Heat, the one thing that I believe is going to hurt the Miami Heat in this series against the New York Knicks is there's no Tyler Hero. There's no Victor Oladipo either. In the regular season, Tyler Hero, he was third from a scoring perspective on the Miami Heat team. Tyler Hero averaged 20 points per game, 4 assists per game, 5 rebounds. I believe that Tyler Hero is a player who can get his own shot. And in order for the Miami Heat to compete and be championship contenders, you need Tyler Hero a part of your lineup, and you need him on the floor. And he broke his hand in game 1 against the Bucks. It was an unfortunate injury. It was kind of odd that he got injured on that play. He was trying to go and fight for the basketball, and he dove on the floor, broke his hand. He even shot a shot attempt after breaking his hand. But I believe that Tyler Hero is one of the contributors for this Miami Heat team. And in order for them to compete, they need Tyler Hero playing. He's not going to be playing in this series. So that's going to hurt Miami. Oladipo, he went down in game 3 against the Bucks. I think he was also a player who can contribute on this Miami Heat basketball team. But I think one of the things that Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, they do a great job of maximizing players' potential and them being able to elevate their games. You look at their roster, Strus and Caleb Martin. I mean, these guys are not stars. And in the postseason, they elevate their games. Gabe Vincent balled out in game 5 for the Miami Heat. He hit a big-time shot in game 5. I think they were down 4, less than 15 seconds to go in the game. If Gabe Vincent misses that shot, the Bucks win game 5. They win game 5. Let me see. Gabe Vincent. In game 5, Gabe Vincent had 22 points, shot 4 of 12 from three-point range, 9 of 23 overall. So he didn't shoot the ball great, but he helped Jimmy Butler from a scoring perspective, because Jimmy Butler needs someone else to come along for the ride. With no Tyler Hero and no Victor Oladipo, Jimmy Butler is going to need someone else on this Miami Heat team to come along for the ride. And in game 5, in a closeout game against the Milwaukee Bucks, it was Gabe Vincent. So Miami, they do a great job of elevating players who are average. They're average, but in the playoffs, they elevate to another level to where they're good. Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Caleb Martin, they're not stars, but on this Miami Heat team, Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, they put them in positions to be successful, and they're C players, but they're B players in the playoffs. And so I think that's going to be key for the Miami Heat. They're going to need someone else to come along for the ride with Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler had 42 in game 5. I think he had 56 in game 4 in Miami, but it's going to have to be someone else. Bam Adebayo, to me, he's inconsistent. I think Bam can score, but there are some times and some games where Bam doesn't play at the level that he's capable of playing at. I mean, in the regular season, Bam averaged 20 points per game, but I don't look at Bam the way I look at Embiid or even a Joker in the low post. Bam is not a low post dominant threat the way that Embiid and Joker is, but he can definitely score. I mean, he does great in those teardrop shots in the middle of the lane. He could definitely get putbacks and offensive rebounds for the Miami Heat and score around the rim, but he's not a great low post threat. But that's one of the keys for the Heat is going to be someone else coming along for the ride with Jimmy Butler. Also a key for the Miami Heat. They're going to need Jimmy Butler to continue playing at the level that he's playing at currently. Jimmy Butler has to continue to play at a superstar level. He can't play average. He can't play even at a star/good level. Jimmy Butler has to play like the best player on the floor in this series. Like, I think the best players in this series are Jimmy Butler, Julius Randle, and Jalen Brunson. Jimmy Butler can't play at the level that Jalen Brunson can play at or Julius Randle can play at. He has to play at a level above Randle and above Brunson in order for the Miami Heat to have a chance to win this series. So he has to continue playing at a high level. and they have to get someone else to come along for the ride with Butler to have a chance at being able to win this series. Another key for the Miami Heat is going to be for the Miami Heat to win far as head coaches. I think Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches we have in the NBA. Like Eric Spoelstra is a tremendous head coach. Eric Spoelstra is a two-time NBA champion as a head coach. He's coached the NBA All-Star game twice in his career. And so far, since he's been a head coach, Eric Spoelstra has coached in 1,195 total games. He's 704 and 491. So he's won 59% of his games as a head coach. And I believe that he is one of the best coaches in the NBA. I think Eric Spoelstra is a top 5 head coach in the NBA. And the way that he's able to get the most from his players is something that should be admired, and we got to give him his flowers as a head coach. I remember at one point, because the Miami Heat, they've been so inconsistent all year. I remember at one point I was listening to Stephen A. on First Take, and Stephen A. was talking about how maybe the Miami Heat, maybe they need a different voice in that locker room. And I believe that the fact that the Miami Heat were able to upset the Milwaukee Bucks in the first round speaks to why the Miami Heat need to keep Eric Spoelstra as their head coach for future seasons to come. I think he should remain the head coach in Miami, because who you're going to go out there and get that's going to be better than Eric Spoelstra is. And I think Eric Spoelstra, him and Jimmy Butler have a great head coach star player relationship. They really, really do. I love their relationship. And I think that they both are competitors at a very, very high level. And, you know, Spoelstra talked about in his post-game press conference after Game 5 about how Jimmy Butler fits the DNA of a star who plays for the Miami Heat. So I think that combination with Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra as head coach and star player is great. And you have to keep that dynamic in place if you're Pat Riley and the Miami Heat as an organization. But those are my keys for the Miami Heat. Now, let's look at the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks this year, Jalen Brunson was the best free agent signing in the NBA last year. Best free agent signing in the NBA. And I believe that Jalen Brunson has done a tremendous job leading this New York Knicks basketball team. During the first round of the NBA playoffs, Jalen Brunson, he averaged 24 points per game, 5 assists per game, 4 rebounds per game. And he didn't have the luxury of having Julius Randle at 100%. And Brunson still played at a high level. And for the second consecutive postseason, Jalen Brunson outplayed Donovan Mitchell. It happened last year, but last year was in the West. Last year, when Jalen Brunson was on the Dallas Mavericks, the Mavericks beat the Jazz in the first round of the NBA playoffs last year, and Brunson outplayed Mitchell in that playoff series last year in the West. Things haven't changed in the East because Brunson outplayed Mitchell again in the first round series between the Cavs and the Knicks. It wasn't even close. And I said that Donovan Mitchell would be the best player on the floor in that Cavs-Knicks series. Boy, was I wrong. Jalen Brunson was the best player on the floor, and Jalen Brunson has been the best player for the New York Knicks the entire season. Julius Randle, we don't know what his availability is going to be because he did get injured in Game 5 of their first round series against the Cavs. He got injured. He injured his ankle again. So we don't know what his availability is going to be. During the regular season, Randle averaged 25 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 4 assists. So that 1-2 duo between Brunson and Randle is going to be key in this series because I believe the Knicks have 2 of the 3 best players in this series, but we don't know the availability of Julius Randle. And game 1 is Sunday. I'm not sure what game 2 is going to be. I'm not sure they're going to get. I'm pretty sure that these series, all of these series, are going to be every other day. So if game 1 is Sunday, game 2 most likely will be Tuesday, and it's a great possibility that Julius Randle could miss the first 2 games of this series. It's possible, and that will help the Miami Heat because they already are without Tyler Hero or without Oladipo. So they're dealing with injury issues of their own. If the Knicks don't have Julius Randle, that's going to really hurt the Knicks. It really, really is. And so that's a key right there. Also, for the New York Knicks, I thought that in the playoffs, Josh Hart and RJ Barrett played great basketball. They really, really did. RJ Barrett averaged 17 points per game in the first round. So I thought RJ Barrett played very, very good basketball. And I remember in the offseason when the Knicks were trying to trade for Donovan Mitchell, they didn't want to give up RJ Barrett. And I thought, like, what are they thinking? This is ridiculous. Like, Donovan Mitchell is a star in the NBA. He's one of the best young players we have in the association. Boy, was I wrong again, because RJ Barrett proved me to be wrong. RJ Barrett played great in that first round series. 17 points per game. Josh Hart averaged 12 points per game. And so I thought because the Knicks had playmakers, that was what helped them in the first round against the Cavs. They had more playmakers than the Cavs had. Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, Josh Hart, Quickly. They had more playmakers. So I think when you look at this series, with the Heat not having Oladipo and Hero, I think the Knicks have more playmakers than even the Heat again in this series. Brunson, Barrett, Hart, Quickly, Randle, if he comes back and plays. So that's also going to be an advantage for the Knicks in this series against the Heat. I think the Heat have, Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler as playmakers who can create off the dribble. I'm talking about players who can create off the dribble, not need players to set up shots for them. Like Max Strus to me, Caleb Martin, they need players to set them up to be successful. Not on the Knicks. RJ Barrett can create his own shot. Josh Hart can create his own shot. Definitely a great perimeter shooter. Quickly can create his own shot. Brunson can damn sure create his own shot as well. So I think the Knicks have more players who can create off the dribble than the Miami Heat have. That's also going to be a key. But one of the players who was tremendous in the first round for the New York Knicks was Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson was sensational from a rebounding standpoint in that first round. Mitchell Robinson, he averaged 6 rebounds offensively per game against the Cavs. 6 offensive rebounds. Like, I thought he completely dominated Evan Mobley in their first round matchup. And so now it's going to be Robinson and Bam down there. And that's going to be interesting because I think Bam, he's going to be up to the challenge. He could definitely rebound the basketball. Bam averaged 9 rebounds per game in the regular season. And they also got Kevin Love as well on the Miami Heat. And I think Kevin Love can also stretch the floor. But Kevin Love and Bam Adebayo have to rebound the basketball for the Miami Heat. That's another key for the Miami Heat. It's not just who's going to come along for the rap. My keys for the Miami Heat are Spoelstra out-coaching Thibodeau, Butler still playing at a high level, at a superstar level for the entire series, and also the Heat out-rebounding the Knicks. The Heat have to rebound the basketball to have a chance in this series. For the Knicks, Robinson, him giving the Knicks second chance opportunities was key against the Cavs. They're going to need him again to dominate the boards. They're definitely going to need him to dominate the boards in this matchup. I spoke about Jalen Brunson a little earlier. Jalen Brunson is ascending. Last year in the playoffs, when he outplayed Mitchell, Brunson averaged 20 points per game. Now, that was with Luka having the basketball in his hands majority of the time. This year, Jalen Brunson, with the basketball in his hands most of the time, Brunson is averaging 24 points per game. So he's averaging 4 more points per game this year in the postseason compared to last year. So he's definitely ascending. He's definitely ascending. And I think the Knicks are the better team between the Knicks and the Heat. I thought the Heat were inconsistent throughout the regular season. The Heat, in their final 25 games of the regular season, they went 12-13. They lost their first play-in game against the Hawks. And then in their second play-in game, they were down by 3 to the Chicago Bulls. And if it wasn't for Jimmy Butler, they would have lost that game as well. I think the Knicks are a better basketball team than the Miami Heat are. I also believe that Tom Thibodeau is going to make defensive adjustments in this series, something that Mike Budenholzer did not do in the first round matchup between the Heat and the Bucks. For whatever reason, Mike Budenholzer made 0 adjustments. 0. For what he had Drew Holiday on Jimmy Butler in all 5 games. It was clear Jimmy Butler was getting the better of Drew Holiday. We know how great of a defender Drew Holiday is, but he had no answers for Jimmy in the first round. No answers. And Mike Budenholzer, because of him being stubborn, did not make the necessary defensive adjustments. Tom Thibodeau is known for his defense. He's more of a defensive head coach than an offensive head coach. So I think Tom Thibodeau is going to force someone else not named Jimmy Butler to beat the Knicks. I believe that Thibodeau will make the necessary defensive adjustments, something Budenholzer failed to do. And that drop coverage that the Bucks played in the first round, I think the Knicks are going to blitz Jimmy Butler on the pick and rolls. They're going to blitz Jimmy Butler. They're not going to allow Jimmy Butler to come off the pick and be able to have an open jump shot, because Jimmy Butler was able to hit his perimeter shots in the first round matchup against the Bucks. So Thibodeau is going to make sure someone else not named Jimmy Butler has to beat the Knicks. Now, we look at Tom Thibodeau as a head coach. Tom Thibodeau, he's coached in 831 games, coached in Chicago, coached in Minnesota, and now has been the head coach of the Knicks for the last 3 seasons. He has a career record of 477 and 356. So he's won 57% of his games as a head coach. I believe that the Heat have the advantage from a head coaching perspective in this series. I also believe that Jimmy Butler will be the best player significantly in this series. And if Julius Randle doesn't play in the beginning of the series, I believe the Miami Heat will have a chance to steal one of those first 2 games at Madison Square Garden. And because of that, I believe that the Miami Heat are going to upset the New York Knicks and beat the Knicks in 7 at MSG, and Jimmy Butler is going to send the Knicks home for summer vacation. I got Heat in 7 over the Knicks, and I believe that this series is going to be tremendous, just like the series that they played in the 90s. But I'm going to roll with Jimmy Butler to carry the Miami Heat to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we're going to have a repeat Eastern Conference Finals matchup between the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics.